She's back. I don't know where I got that from. Hello, good evening, good morning. I'm recording this in the evening. And how you doing? I know it's been a while. Listen, it's summer in Toronto. I have a corporate job. I want to be outside, but I also want to help you ladies. So let's go. In today's episode, I love to say we, I don't know why. In today's episode, I am going to be talking about, of course, menopause. Some of the things that I wish I knew before I got here. Well, perimenopause. And I'm going to share some tips in hopes that it can help you. If you're listening to this podcast, clearly you're already here. You're in your 40s, going through perimenopause, and you want some information. Before I jump into this week's episode, I need a favor from you. So I know that Google no longer hosts podcasts, but iPhone does, and a lot of you ladies listen to me on iPhone. I need a favor. Could you please, pretty please, I'm asking you, rate and review the podcast. Of course, the direct link is going to be in the show notes. And if you're listening to this, you'll probably already have it. But when you rate and review, it helps to bump it up. So more women going through perimenopause, feeling crazy, feeling confused, don't understand the changes in their bodies, that they will find my podcast and it will help them. So without further ado, let's hop into this, girlfriend. Sorry, I took a sip of water, stay hydrated. So I'm going to talk about some of the things, but first, I already did an episode on this, but I think it's also important that I do another one. Sorry, do another one where I kind of touch on this a bit. So I love definitions. If you've been listening to any episode or if this is your first time, I love to define things just to make sure that we are on the same page. So, menopause, a lot of women, they're like, oh, I think I'm going through menopause. No, you're not. You do not know when you're going through menopause, or you don't know you've hit menopause until you've arrived. So you have to go 12 consecutive months and then boom, that's menopause. So anything in between, it is perimenopause. As long as you have not gone 12 straight months, it is perimenopause. So if you've gone 10 straight months, you're perimenopause, and then month 11, you get a period, you're still in perimenopause. To me, that's pretty simple. If you haven't gone one whole year without a period, you're in perimenopause. Once you've hit that 12-month, you're menopause, then everything else is post-menopause. A lot of the symptoms for post and perimenopause are very similar. So let's talk about, I'm going to share my experience, what I wish I knew. And of course, 45, and I've been perimenopausal for about 4, 5 years. And whenever I tell women that, they're like, oh, you're too young to be going through perimenopause. I'm 54 and I'm not there yet. That's fine. That's a you thing. And each of us, when we enter perimenopause and the symptoms we experience may differ, but the definition is the same. So when I said the average woman starts at like 51, everyone think that if you're not 51, you're not supposed to be, and you're experiencing a lot of the symptoms, you can't be perimenopausal, but that's not true. Even women in their late 30s are perimenopausal. And a few reasons why that happens now, it's because our lifestyle are so stressed. We live such a stressful life in our everyday lives, the commute to work, when we get home, when we get to work, everything we have to do. Also, our environment, the pollution, the alcohol we drink, the creams we use on our skin, the clothing we wear, especially polyester, those are very harsh on our skin. the drinking of alcohol, the makeup, the perfumes, so many of those things are endocrine disruptors. They disrupt our system, throw our hormones out of balance. And then, next thing we know, we're in early we're perimenopausal and we don't even realize. And then we're like, what's going on? So I did an episode where I did talk about my experience. So I want to share with you where I was 4 or 5 years ago and where I am now in perimenopause and share some tips that I hope will definitely help you. Hey, gorgeous. So if you are a woman over 40 going through perimenopause, and you're consistently tired. You cannot, you have no energy to do anything. You don't know what's going on. You're gaining belly fat no matter what you're doing. You are tired. You are moody. You are anxious. You just don't understand what's going on and you want help. You want to have more energy. You want to sleep through the nights. You want to lose your belly fat. You want to be feeling like you again. I do have my program Thrive, Transform, and Glow Through Perimenopause. We are going to be starting in the fall, and the waiting list is here. So check the show notes and register because I definitely want to help you. I want you to feel like you again. I want you to be just sailing, cruising through perimenopause. So check the show notes for the link to get on the waiting list. So when I entered perimenopause 4 years ago, that was around COVID. Some of the symptoms that I was experiencing, I'll never forget in the summer in Toronto. One day I went into the backyard and the way this my skin felt so sensitive to the heat. I love the heat. I'm a black girl. I'm Jamaican. I'm one of those black women who you'll never hear me complain that is too hot. But I'll never forget one day I stepped out and the way the sun felt so sensitive on my skin, I was like, something is going on. Also, the boobs started to grow and was tender. I did like them growing. I'm not even gonna lie, but then they were also tender. I started experiencing like ringing in my ear. I started experience bloat, and my period was just irregular. And at first, I thought, okay, it's the height of COVID, it's the stress from the isolation and all of those things. And especially, Toronto, we were under lockdown for about 2 years. So I thought, boom, it was just the isolation, COVID. Um, ran a few tests, got tired of feeling how I was feeling, ran a few tests. My doctor's amazing. At the time, everything was okay, but we're like, okay, let's watch it, let's see what's going on. Ran some other tests, found out I have fibroids. We got those under control. They were small, whatever. Then about a year later, some of my symptoms, it seems like the symptoms got worse. Bottom line turned out, ran some more blood work. I had hyperthyroidism, overactive thyroid. I was losing weight rapidly. Like I couldn't eat anything. Nothing stayed in, nothing stayed down. I was weak. I was lethargic. I was winded walking up the stairs. Went through some treatment plans, got rid of that. Took about 6 to 8 months, but then some of the symptoms were still there, but my thyroid level was okay. And my doctor was like, because of your age, you may be perimenopausal. And I'm going to be honest, up until 5 years ago, I did not know about perimenopause. I kind of sort of feel embarrassed now saying it because I feel like, oh, you're in the fitness world, you're into wellness, you're helping women, you should know this. But it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know. I just thought that, boom, there was menopause. I did not even know that menopause's definition was you had to go 12 consecutive months without a period before you're considered, before it's menopause. Excuse my ignorance. I just thought that you missed 1 month period You're not pregnant, boom, that's menopause. As I said, saying this out loud, it sounds so silly, but this is why I'm doing using my platform to educate you on it. And then I was like, what is that? And he explained it to me and he explained some of the symptoms. And this was when I realized, okay, this is my health. I need to understand it. And if I'm working with women, then they need to understand it. I have to understand it. And I was experiencing more symptoms. And I started reading every book I could find my hand on about menopause and perimenopause. A lot of them were trash, to be honest with you. A lot of them were talking about the symptoms, but no solution. And I remember when I read somewhere that there were over 80 symptoms and that perimenopause could last 5 to 15 years and that it can become worse. I remember thinking, excuse my language, oh, heck no. I think it was like 42, 43. I'm like, there's absolutely no way on earth I can carry on like this for another 5 months, let alone 5 to 15 years. And I started reading more and I started taking all these university courses and understanding the body and hormones and the changes that we're going through. And it is through that I have learned a few things that I'm going to be sharing with you and I wish I knew before. One, perimenopause is not something for you to be ashamed of. It's not something for you to be embarrassed about. It is not something for you to need a cure from. It is a natural state. And to be honest, if we are lucky enough to get here, to make it here, oh, baby, pat yourself on the back because that's a blessing. I know it may suck, but it is still a blessing because we're in our 40s. Some of you ladies may be over 50. We've made it this far. There's so many women who didn't get to make it here, right? So the fact that we're going through it, that's kind of a blessing because we're getting older, and getting older is a beautiful thing. So that's one. We don't need a cure for it. It's not an illness. It's not a disease. It feels like an illness. It feels like a disease because we're tired. You're probably experiencing tiredness, insomnia, moodiness, anxiety, depression. Your libido is low. Like there's so many things that may be going on, and you're like, what is going on? And your doctor gives you some sort of medication, and then you kind of sort of feel better. But it is not an illness. A lot of our symptoms can be reduced and eventually eradicated. And I know that for a fact because here I am, 45, and I have no perimenopausal symptoms, and I have helped clients. But I had to learn that. I had to learn that in order to reduce and eventually eradicate the symptoms was to one, I had to understand my body. A lot of you ladies don't understand your body. And that's also, society's part because one, who taught us? Who taught us what to expect? Who taught us about menopause? Who taught us about what changes? And a lot of us, when we talk about it, it's kind of like I was at a crossroad. It's almost like a meeting where we're comparing symptoms, whose symptoms is worse. And we're talking about the symptoms we all have and experience, which is great. But what is the point if we don't know how to get rid of those symptoms? We think it's normal when it's not. Something I have learned, what we're experiencing, the hot flashes, the weight gain, all of those are symptoms. Something else is going on underneath. There's a reason. And when I work with clients, my goal is to get to the root cause of the symptoms because that's what I did for myself. It's like, okay, why are you experiencing hot flashes? Why are you so moody? Right? And what I found is the more stressful your lifestyle is, the more severe your symptoms are going to be, the more severe and longer your symptoms are going to be. Let me repeat that. The more stressful your lifestyle is, the more severe your symptoms are going to be. Now, I'm not saying stress doesn't happen. Stress is going to happen. That's life. The problem is when we stay in a heightened stress mode, right? That's when the problem comes in. So whether it's stress from work, dealing with our families, from juggling being a wife, a mom, just everyday stress. And a lot of you have very stressful jobs, right? Those add to it, along with some ladies don't even realize that they're stressed because they've been in stress mode so long, it just seems like it's normal. And I know I keep saying this, but I promise you, I am going to be dropping a video, not a video, sorry, a podcast episode about stress because you need to know how that's really impacting your health. But here's some things that I suggest that you do, and I wish I had done um, before I got here, where I could better understand it and navigate it. But hey, hindsight is 2020, whatever. So one, understand it. Understand perimenopause. Understand what's going on. And in order to understand, here's number two, you have to pay attention to your bodies. Whenever I hear women say, oh, perimenopause just slap up out of nowhere and hit me. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It starts sending you signals for days, for weeks, for months, sometimes for years. But because one, you're not taught, you don't know what's going on, you don't realize what's going on, you just carry on, you pop a pill, or you just keep pushing through because that's what you're accustomed to doing, right? You keep going. And sometimes you may even go to the doctor and they perform all these blood works and they say you're normal, but you're like, something's off, but you're like, oh, well, the doctor said I'm okay, so I'm gonna keep going. So pay attention to your body. With paying attention to your body, take notes. I'm a, I'm gonna assume that you have a smartphone. Most of us have a smartphone. You're probably listening to this podcast episode on a smartphone. What I suggest you do, open your notes pad and start taking notes. Take inventory of the changes that your body is experiencing. As I said, perimenopause don't just sneak up. It sends a signals for years. So start taking notes on your period. Like one of the things for me when I realized, okay, something's definitely off here, my mind ain't playing tricks on me, was when I started taking notes on my period. I have an iPhone. In the notes section, I simply had created a tab, periods. And when I start looking at the dates, because we forget these things, it's like, when was my period last month? How do I have one right now? And I remember it was like at one point I was getting a period every 15 days. Then it switched to 21. And then there was one time I got four periods in a month. And honestly, if I was not checking it, then I wouldn't have realized what was going on. And, when I say take inventory, it is nothing elaborate, nothing extravagant. The same amount of time you would be spending scrolling on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, you can just put in it, didn't sleep last night, didn't sleep last night again, was up at 2 a.m., was up at 2 a.m. again. And you can kind of track what's going on. Because if you're not really paying attention, it's gonna be difficult to figure out what's going on. And if you're not paying attention, when you go to the doctor, what are you gonna tell them is wrong? Speaking of going to the doctor, advocate for yourself. No one, and I repeat, no one is going to go as hard for you and your health as you. It is important that you find a healthcare provider who takes you, your complaints, your symptoms, whatever you're experiencing, serious. If they're brushing you off as if or nothing's wrong, I honestly suggest you think twice. Your doctor is supposed to be going hard for you. They're supposed to taking the symptoms you're experiencing and looking deeper and not just be like, here's a pill. And you're like, what's wrong? I don't know. Here's a pill. How are you going to give me a pill to treat something? How are you going to treat something with a pill when you don't know what's wrong, right? Find a healthcare professional that can really help you, who is listening to you. Even if they themselves can't directly tell you or figure out that you're in perimenopause, they can listen to you and guide you to someone else who may be able to help you because that is helping you. But if your healthcare practitioner is simply brushing you off and making you seem, your symptoms of what you're going through inconsequential, or they're telling you things like, oh, you're getting older, just live with it. No, 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 boo. No. Reevaluate that. Know the symptoms. Know the symptom because I think most of us are aware of hot flashes, but we're not aware of the other symptoms like the moodiness, the insomnia, the incontinence, um, the metallic taste in your mouth, the body odor, the change in periods, the periods becoming more painful, and stuff like that. There are over 80 symptoms. And eventually, I'm going to get through to podcast episodes where I'm talking about those. But you need to know the symptoms. And one of the way you can know is, read things, listen to my podcast, have conversations with your friends. You have to know the symptoms and you have to know what is going on with your body and the changes. Don't keep things a secret. I think most of us are kind of opening up. You don't have to go broadcast it, telling everyone at work or on social media. But I think part of the reason a lot of us don't know is our moms and our aunts didn't talk about these things, but they were also from an era where nothing was spoken about. So it's like they can't tell us what they didn't know, or if they spoke about it, it wasn't from an educational perspective. It was more like complaining and whining, or some of them didn't even know what was going on with their bodies, right? So don't keep it a secret. Have conversations because by having these conversations, you could be helping each other as someone else can be like, hey, oh, this is how you feel. For example, over on Instagram, I posted a video a few days ago where I spoke, where I told women, hey, you're not crazy if these are some of the symptoms you're experiencing. And the amount of share it's gotten, the amount of women who comment on it, the amount of women in my DM thanking me, hey, thank you for bringing attention to this. Thank you for letting me know I'm not crazy. Or they're like, thank you for speaking up about it. From listening to you on here, from listening to your podcast episodes, I was able to have conversations with my mom and my aunt about what they went through. I'm having conversations with friends. I'm having conversations with my doctor. And, it really makes me feel happy to hear that because I feel like this really is my purpose to help you. And this is what I'm doing. And the last one, don't skip your annual checkups. I know we are like, we don't like going to the doctors. The doctors, you know, make it so hard, or you're like, blood work isn't going to show it because sometimes the blood work will come back normal when you're in fact in perimenopause. Because remember, at this stage, your hormones are going haywire. 1 minute they're up, 1 minute they're down. You never know where they're going to be when the blood work is ran. So you may be in perimenopause, but but the tests show normal. You still got to do those blood work at least once a year because you want to rule out other things. For example, thyroid issues. Some of the symptoms you experience with having either overactive thyroid or underactive thyroid are very, very similar to the ones experienced with perimenopause. Blood work can rule it out. And also, if you ever go on Google and and look up your symptoms, You're either dying or you're perimenopausal. So I shouldn't have laughed about that. But you also want to rule it out. You don't want to be playing Russian roulette with your health. All right. So I hope you found this podcast episode informative. If it's your first time listening, take a listen to the other podcast episodes. If you are returning, thank you for supporting me. And please don't forget to rate and review the podcast. It would really help me. And I'm over on TikTok and IG. Train with Trudy, Trudie. Come on over, follow me, and have a fabulous one, God.